One of the things our fathers never told us about was our breath and how important it is. Now, they may have told us that if we don't breathe, it's pretty important, that we're going to die if we don't breathe. But they didn't tell us about the other parts of the breath that are so critically important for us. And the reason they didn't tell us that is because they didn't know. In fact, a lot of people still don't know how important the breath is. The breath is hugely important because we know now that the breath is linked to the way we feel, period. The autonomic nervous system has two poles, the sympathetic pole and the parasympathetic pole. And we know now that the way you breathe will change whether you are in a parasympathetic dominance or a sympathetic dominance. Now, this is critical because the sympathetic dominance is fight or flight. It's like, put them up, let's get to it. Tense, tense, tense. The parasympathetic is like you just finished Thanksgiving dinner and you're looking for the couch, to lay down and go prone for a while. So the more we can spend time in that parasympathetic dominance, the better off we're going to be as far as our own tension levels, our psychological well-being. You need at least a little bit of that every day. And most of us, in the pace of life today, we do not have that downtime. And what's important to know is that the breath is completely connected to that downtime. If you can slow the breath down to about 3 a minute or less, you're going to go into a parasympathetic dominance that is very, very helpful. Now, this is critical for people with anxiety issues. If you've got panic attacks, if you've got anxiety and things like that, the breath is your friend. Breath control is self-control. A great teacher of mine told me that years and years ago, and I kind of threw it off at first, but the more I've thought about it and the more I've learned, the more I realized that is the truth. Breath control is self-control. And like anything else, the more you practice, the better you get at it. So we're going to be talking about some different things you can do to slow that breath down. Now, whatever you do, don't try and slow the breath down if you're driving or if you're doing something that's critical for your attention, etc., etc., etc. Because this is potent stuff. This is much more potent than most people think. So make sure you're in a relaxed place, nobody's around, you're not no responsibilities. And just see if you can slow that breath down. Now, the way you do this is not by consciously going, I'm going to slow the breath down, I'm going to slow the breath down. No. All you do is do a very simple breath, just like this. Take a breath in. Not a huge breath, but not a small breath. Take a breath in, and then release it with a long sigh. Oh, let all your frustration come out on that long sigh out. Oh, whatever's there. Now make sure you make a sound on the exhale. No one knows why, but when you make a sound on the exhale, it about doubles the potency of this. So breath in, release it with a long sigh. Do that about 50 times and see what happens to you. What you're going to find is that slows the breath down without you trying to slow it down. Because at first you'll sort of like this. Oh. And after about 50, you're going to be like this. On and on and on and on and on and on. And you're going to get the breath down to about 1 every 20 seconds or less. When that happens, folks, you go into a different state. You go into a relaxed state. This will not only help you with acute anxiety. If you do this exercise repeatedly for about 15 or 20 minutes a day, it has a cumulative effect. So that the more you do it, after about maybe 6 months of doing this once a day, your anxiety levels are going to go down. You're not going to be anxious. Now, this is very important for men because most young men have anxiety issues. It's the law of the land. You've got testosterone. Testosterone juices you up. And that's anxiety. Your palms are going to feel moist. You're going to feel like you got to do this and that and get things done, blah, 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 blah. So this is critical for young men to learn how to slow everything down. And trust me, good things happen when you slow down. Really good things. And we can talk more about that in another video. But for right now, the other thing I wanted to touch on today is that the breath is important not just for anxiety purposes, but because it's connected to every emotion we have. If you can control your breath, you can control your emotions. I'm sure a lot of guys out there listening to this going, damn, really? Damn. And it's the truth. if you can get the breath down to about 20 seconds or less, you're not going to have that anxiety, the fear. You're not going to have the anger. You're not going to have the sadness. You're not going to have the anything. You're going to be in a completely different state. What's interesting is that most people don't know this, but almost all emotions have a breath that's correlated to it. How do you breathe when you're angry? You hold your breath, right? You hold that breath. You hold it. When you hold it, what is it doing? It's getting you more into a sympathetic dominance. And then when we are anxious, how do we breathe? Shallow and quick. Shallow and quick. And if you breathe shallow and quick, you're going to move into an anxious sort of state. If you can stop that breath, move it down to about 3 a minute or so, you're not going to have the anxiety in the same way. It's going to slow way the hell down. You're going to feel better very, very quickly. This is more potent than most people give it credit for. Most people look at this and they say, oh, that's just the way you breathe. Trust me. It's potent, but you got to practice. You got to try. You got to put some effort into it. And what happens when people get sad? How do they breathe? Staccato. The way we breathe is connected with the way we feel, and it's connected to our anxiety. So just practice this little breath. Do it before you go to bed. And what's going to happen is in fact, if you have sleep problems, this will put you right to sleep. But before you go to bed, just lay there and say, okay, Golden, okay, men are good. Here we go. Of course, if you got a spouse next to you, she ain't going to be so happy with that. But, do what you need to do. But practice this. Do it in private if you can. Practice, practice, practice. The more you do it, the better you get at it, the better you're going to feel. You're going to feel good doing this on a long-term basis. You're going to improve your mood just from the way you breathe. Who'd have thunk it? And let's not forget, men are good. So are you. Be a less anxious man. Do the breath. Like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah.